Dawn of Revelation. The ESS Thunderchild emerged from the shadow of Saturn, its obsidian hull absorbing, rather than reflecting light. At 3 kilometers long, the vessel represented humanity's greatest technological achievement, and its best-kept secret. Admiral Elena Vasquez stood on the command bridge, her weathered face illuminated by the soft blue glow of holographic displays. 40 years of patience had led to this moment. "Final systems check complete, Admiral," reported Commander Jackson, his voice carrying a hint of anticipation that mirrored the mood throughout the massive ship. Elena nodded, her eyes fixed on the main viewport where Saturn's rings provided a dramatic backdrop. "Stealth systems, operating at peak efficiency. As far as any galactic sensors are concerned, we're just background radiation." A small, satisfied smile crossed Elena's face. "Very good. Navigation, set course for the Arcturus system. Prepare for dimensional shift." The ship hummed with energy as its revolutionary gravitational drive engaged. Unlike the noisy, inefficient engines used by the rest of the galaxy, the Thunderchild's drive bent space itself, allowing for silent, rapid travel between stars. As the stars began to blur outside, Elena's mind drifted back to humanity's first contact with the galactic community 50 years prior. The Jean had arrived with promises of technological exchange and peaceful cooperation. Earth had celebrated, thrilled to discover they weren't alone in the universe. The celebration lasted until the trade agreements were signed. The Galactic Union, it turned out, operated on a tiered system. As newcomers, humans were placed at the bottom tier. Developing species, the Jean representative had called them with a patronizing flick of his fourth appendage. Lower-tier species received limited technology, faced restrictive trade tariffs, and had no voting rights in the Union Council. Earth's resources, meanwhile, were deemed open access to higher-tier civilizations. Elena remembered the outrage when a Jean mining fleet arrived without warning and began stripping asteroids in the Kuiper Belt. Asteroids already claimed by human corporations. When Earth protested, the Union Council dismissed their complaints as the growing pains of civilization. "Admiral." Commander Jackson's voice pulled her from her memories. "We're receiving an emergency broadcast from the Human Research Outpost on Arcturus IV." Elena's posture stiffened. On screen, the main display flickered to life, showing a human woman in a bloodied lab coat. The image shook as explosions sounded in the background. "This is Dr. Andrea Chen of Arcturus Research Station. We are under attack by Krull vessels. The Galactic Union assured us this was neutral territory. We have no defenses. 23 scientists are dead already, and they're breaking through the final barricade. Please, anyone." The transmission cut to static. Elena's jaw tightened. "Time to Arcturus. 18 minutes at maximum dimensional shift. Admiral, make it 15. As the Thunderchild accelerated, Elena addressed the bridge crew. "For 50 years, we've played the role of the peaceful newcomers. We traded our goods, learned their languages, mapped their territories, and studied their technologies, all while they thought we were simple primitives who got lucky with basic spaceflight." She walked to the tactical station where Lieutenant Rivera was already running combat simulations. "What do we know about Krell military capabilities?" Rivera brought up displays showing alien vessels with distinct angular designs, standard ion propulsion, plasma-based weapons. Their advantage has always been numbers and aggression. "And they've never fought humans before," Elena added. "No, Admiral. They've only encountered our science and trading vessels." Elena nodded grimly. "Time to change that." The Thunderchild emerged from dimensional space with barely a ripple, its perfect transition a testament to human engineering. The tactical display immediately showed the situation. 3 Krell warships bombarding a small research facility on the moon below. The outpost's shields were failing, its distress beacons still broadcasting weakly. "The Krell haven't detected us," reported the sensor officer. "Good. Maintain stealth approach until we're in optimal firing position," Elena ordered. "Prepare quantum phase cannons." The weapons systems powered up silently, drawing energy from the ship's revolutionary matter-antimatter core, another technology Earth had developed in secret while pretending to struggle with fusion power. Targeting solutions acquired for all three vessels, Lieutenant Rivera announced. Elena stood, her voice steady and cold. Disengage stealth systems. Let them see us. The Thunderchild shimmered into visibility, its massive form materializing seemingly from nowhere, directly between the Krell ships and their prey. The effect was immediate. The Krell vessels broke formation, scrambling to reorient their weapons. "They're hailing us," reported Communications Officer Lin. On screen, a Krell commander appeared, his scaled face contorted in what humans had learned was an expression of contempt. "Human vessel," the translation came through. "You have violated Krell space. Your primitive ship is no match for our battle fleet. Surrender or be destroyed." Elena studied the alien briefly. "You're attacking a scientific outpost in neutral territory. Stand down immediately and withdraw." The Krell commander's membranous gills flared. "Neutral? This moon has valuable geothermal resources claimed by the Krell hegemony. Your presence here is unauthorized." And the 23 dead scientists. Was their murder authorized? Regrettable casualties of expansion. Now move aside or join them. Elena cut the transmission with a gesture. They've made their choice. Tactical, disable their engines. "Admiral," Commander Jackson said quietly, "these are the same people who just killed our scientists. They deserve." "We are not them, Commander," Elena interrupted firmly. "We disable if possible, destroy if necessary." On the tactical display, the Krell ships had formed an attack pattern, their weapons powering up. Their first salvo of plasma bolts streaked toward the Thunderchild. "Hold position," Elena ordered calmly. "Let them see what they're dealing with." The plasma bolts struck the Thunderchild's shields and simply vanished, absorbed completely by the quantum field technology Earth had perfected decades ago. Shield absorption at 100%. "Power reserves actually increasing from the energy intake," reported the engineering officer, unable to keep the pride from his voice. The Krell ships paused, clearly confused by the lack of impact. "Now, Lieutenant Rivera." Surgical strikes on their propulsion systems. From the Thunderchild, pencil-thin beams of brilliant white light shot out, moving faster than any weapon in known space. They passed through the Krell shields as if they weren't there, precisely severing power conduits to the engines. 2 Krell ships immediately went dark, drifting in space. The third ship, perhaps panicking, fired everything it had at the human vessel. Again, the shield simply absorbed the energy. "That ship targeted the research station's life support modules," Rivera reported. "They killed the survivors." Elena's expression hardened. "Target their bridge." Full power. This time, when the Thunderchild fired, the beam was thicker, more intense. It cut through the Krell vessel from end to end. For a moment, the alien ship seemed intact. Then it broke apart, secondary explosions tearing it to pieces. "Scan for survivors on the station and the disabled Krell ships," Elena ordered. 5 human survivors detected in a sealed laboratory section, reported the sensor officer. "Life support failing. Approximately 8 minutes remaining. Launch rescue shuttles immediately. Security teams with medical support." As the rescue operation began, Commander Jackson approached Elena. "The Krell ships are broadcasting automated distress signals. Their central command will know what happened here within hours." "Good," Elena replied. That was the point. She turned to Communications Officer Lin. "Send a message to Earth Command. Operation Revelation has begun. Deploy the Perseus and the Orion to secure our other research outposts." Lin nodded. "And the Galactic Union Council. Send them everything. The attack footage, our response, and a formal statement from Earth government." "What should the statement say?" Elena looked at the shattered remains of the Krell warship on the main screen, then at the rescue shuttles now docking with the damaged research station. Tell them that after 50 years of patience, humanity is finally showing its true face. The era of exploitation is over. In the command center beneath Mount Fuji, Earth Defense Force General Takahashi watched the transmission from the Thunderchild with a mixture of pride and apprehension. Around him, the combined military leadership of Earth sat in stunned silence as they witnessed humanity's first true combat engagement with an alien force. The Krell never knew what hit them, Admiral Wong said, breaking the silence. General Takahashi nodded, and neither will the rest of the galaxy. He turned to his communications officer. Activate all sleeper cells. I want our intelligence operatives throughout Union space to begin Phase 2 immediately. Across 12 star systems, human traders, diplomats, and cultural attaches received encrypted messages. Within hours, the carefully constructed facade of human technological backwardness would be systematically dismantled. The galaxy was about to learn that they had been deceived for half a century, and that humanity was no longer willing to play the role of the galaxy's newest victim. The reckoning had begun. Echoes of power. The Galactic Union Council chamber on Centauri Prime hummed with anxious energy. 200 representatives from the galaxy's recognized species sat in rising tiers around a central speaking floor, their voices a cacophony of outrage, fear, and disbelief. Emergency session had been called after news of the Krell human engagement spread throughout civilized space. Supreme Counselor Dex Mera of the Jean species stood at the central podium, his 4 upper limbs raised for quiet, the ceremonial robes of his office failing to conceal his agitation. Order. The council will have order. His amplified voice boomed through the chamber. As the noise gradually subsided, the massive doors at the chamber's entrance slid open. Ambassador Sarah Chen walked in, flanked by 2 human aides. Unlike the ornate costumes worn by most representatives, her attire was simple, a tailored black uniform, with Earth's emblem of a stylized globe and stars. It projected understated confidence. The Council recognizes Earth's representative, Dex Mera announced, his voice dripping with cold formality. Sarah walked to the center of the chamber, felt the eyes of the galaxy upon her, some curious, some fearful, most hostile. For 50 years, she began, her voice clear and unwavering. Humanity sought peaceful integration into the galactic community. We followed your rules. We accepted unfair trade agreements. We smiled when you called us primitives behind our backs. Murmurs spread through the chamber. Some representatives shifted uncomfortably. We were rewarded with dismissal, exploitation, and finally, the unprovoked attack on our research outpost at Arcturus IV, which resulted in 23 deaths. Your outpost was in disputed territory, shouted the Krell representative, his scales flushing red with anger. Disputed. Sarah turned to face him directly. Your own council classified that sector as neutral territory. You gave us permission to establish there, then attacked without warning. She turned to face the full council again. But that's not why I'm here today. I'm here because it's time for honesty. Ambassador Chen touched a control on her wrist. Above her, a hologram appeared showing the Thunderchild in all its terrible glory. This is one of Earth's battleships. We have others. She touched the control again. One by one, holograms of similar warships appeared, floating above the stunned council. 12 vessels in total, each as imposing as the first. Earth no longer asks for a seat at your table, Sarah declared. We are taking it. The chamber erupted in shouts and accusations. Supreme Counselor Dex Mera pounded his podium for order. The Jan ambassador rose, his upper appendages trembling with indignation. You deceived us all. For decades you pretended to be a minor power while secretly building weapons of war. We protected ourselves, Sarah corrected, as is the right of any species facing a hostile galaxy that systematically exploits newcomers. The deception ends today. From a side entrance, representatives from the Ardani, Tellarite, and Voss systems, all lower-tier species like humanity, moved to stand alongside Ambassador Chen. My colleagues here represent species who have suffered similar treatment under your tiered system, Sarah continued. Together, we are forming a new coalition. The Alliance of Free Worlds will ensure mutual protection and fair treatment for all members. This is sedition. The Jan ambassador sputtered. The Union Council will not stand for this open rebellion. Sarah's expression remained calm. It's not rebellion, Ambassador. It's evolution. The Union has operated on the principle that might makes right for centuries. We're simply speaking the only language you understand. She gestured to the holographic fleet still hovering above. Our terms are simple. The tier system ends now. All species receive equal voting rights in galactic affairs. Resource rights within a system belong exclusively to the inhabitants of that system. Technology is shared equitably. Or what? Challenged Dex Mara. Sarah met his gaze unflinchingly. Or we demonstrate what these ships can actually do when they're not being restrained by mercy. The silence that followed was deafening. Supreme Counselor Dex Mara finally spoke, his voice careful. The Council will consider your proposals. You have 48 standard hours, Sarah replied, then turned and walked from the chamber, the representatives of the newly formed alliance following in her wake. Outside the council tower, Ambassador Chen boarded her shuttle for the return to the Thunderchild, which hung in orbit like a silent promise, or threat, above the Centauri capital. They'll stall for time, said Dr. Rana, the Ardani representative. They'll try to find weaknesses in your fleet or turn other species against you. Sarah nodded. We're counting on it. The longer they deliberate, the more time our intelligence operatives have to reveal the extent of Union corruption to the general population. Throughout civilized space, human deep cover agents were doing exactly that, leaking classified documents, broadcasting records of closed council sessions, and revealing the staggering profit margins higher-tier species enjoyed at the expense of the lower tiers. Protests had already erupted on 12 worlds. Back on Earth, in the underground command center, General Takahashi and the Defense Council watched the unfolding events with tense anticipation. Union military vessels are mobilizing throughout the sector, reported Intelligence Director Nakamura. Primarily John and Krell fleets. As expected, Takahashi replied. Are our ships in position? All 12 battleships have reached their designated coordinates. The Orion is stationed near the Ardani homeworld. The Perseus is protecting Teller Prime, and the others are deployed to strategic positions throughout Union space. And the Thunderchild, maintaining position above Centauri Prime. Ambassador Chen reports the Council is in continuous session. Takahashi nodded, then turned to a secure communication terminal. It's time. On his command, Earth's final surprise was revealed. Throughout Union space, seemingly ordinary human trading vessels, research stations, and diplomatic outposts suddenly activated previously hidden systems. Powerful jamming fields disrupted Union military communications. Sensor arrays went offline. Navigation systems failed. In the council chamber on Centauri Prime, the emergency alarms blared as communication with their fleets was lost. When Supreme Counselor Dex Mara attempted to contact the Zhan High Command, he found all channels blocked. The doors to the chamber opened once more, and Ambassador Chen returned. What have you done? Dex Mara demanded. Demonstrated another aspect of our capabilities, Sarah replied calmly. Every Union military vessel in the sector is currently blind, deaf, and effectively immobilized. They can still fire their weapons, of course, but they can't aim them at anything. She walked to the center of the chamber again. We could destroy your fleets right now, and they wouldn't even see it coming. But that's not our goal. From her pocket, she produced a small data crystal and placed it on the central podium. This contains our complete terms, as well as evidence of the systematic exploitation of lower-tier species by the Union leadership. I suggest you review it carefully before responding. And if we refuse? A Krell counselor snarled. Sarah's expression didn't change. Then we'll release this information to every being in Union space, disengage our jamming fields, and let the ensuing revolution sort things out. I suspect many of you wouldn't survive the public's reaction." She turned to leave, then paused. "One more thing. We've broadcast the specifications of our jamming technology to all Alliance worlds. If any Union vessel approaches their territories with hostile intent, they'll find themselves similarly disabled." As she walked from the chamber a second time, the stunned silence behind her was broken only by the frantic whispers of counselors wondering how it had come to this, how the primitives they had dismissed for decades had suddenly seized control of the entire sector. 3 days later, the Union Council ratified the Treaty of Centauri, formally abolishing the tier system and recognizing the sovereignty of all sentient species. The Alliance of Free Worlds was granted equal standing with the reformed Union, and open technology sharing was established as a founding principle of the new galactic order. Admiral Elena Vasquez stood on the bridge of the Thunderchild, watching as the treaty signing was broadcast across civilized space. "Do you think it will last?" Commander Jackson asked quietly. "The peace." Elena considered the question. "It will last as long as they remember this moment. The day they realized that humanity wasn't weak. We simply didn't want to fight." She looked out at the stars, at the galaxy it would never underestimate Earth again. "There's a difference.